Hi everyone, this is Rebecca Keppel. I'm here today with another card video, and in this video I want to talk about adding felt to the front of cards, which I think is really fun, and I've done it before in one of the lessons of my big picture classes card class called the Wow Factor, and I'm going to link to that class down below in the description. But for today's video, I'm actually playing along with the Simon Says Stamp Challenge to use those memory box dies. And these dies are so much fun. You can use them on cardstock, felt, fabric, and they cut little stitch holes around the edge of the shape. This is the first one I've bought from Memory Box, and I really love it. I just wanted to try it out with a little one like this heart, and I'm totally in love. I'm going to be buying more for sure. So it has the cutting edge around the outside of the heart, but it also has a stitched hole line around the inside of the cutting edge. And you can use this with any standard manual die cut machine. And you can see there that the one on the left looked a little fuzzy. That's because I didn't use a precision base plate. The needle that I'm using is a thicker needle. It's like an embroidery needle. And the thread that I'm using is actually a crochet thread. I really like the crispness of this thread. So here's my Sizzix machine. I do have the plus machine, so all the platforms you'll see are the plus size platforms, except for the precision plate. That first one was the Big Shot Plus platform. Then I have my adapter A, that's for thin metal dies. Now I have the precision base plate. I highly recommend using this precision base plate when you're cutting felt. You get a much cleaner edge. So the way that you use that is you flip it with the metal side facing you. And then these felt pieces, I got this big stack at Target and I really like it. It's a stiffer felt than what I usually find at the big box craft stores, and I really like how that lays on cards or layouts. It just lays flatter and it looks straighter. Now I have my memory box die. I'm going to place it with the cutting side down on the felt, and I'm going to run it through my Sizzix machine. I run it through once and then I back it up and run it through again. You might not have to do that, but I just like to know that I'm going to get it cut all the way through. It's going to be a nice clean cut. So when I pop it out, you can see that a bunch of the little holes are already popping out, but I can use my Spellbinders tool-in-one to pop the rest out, or when you're sewing, you can use your needle to pop those out. Important step here is to take the tool-in-one or something sharp like a needle or a pin and pop out those little felts. The first couple of times I ran it through, I forgot to do that, and they got really smushed together in there and they were very hard to pop out. But when you do it each time, they're very easy to pop out, and then your die is ready to go for the next time you cut. So the thing that I really love about this die is that you can get two looks from it. The first look is to use a typical back stitch, and you do that by coming up from the back and leaving yourself a little tail to tie a knot, then going straight for a stitch. Then when you come up through the next hole, instead of going forward, you go backwards towards your last stitch. When you use stitching templates, you're probably using this back stitch to create shapes and letters and things like that on layouts and cards. So I'm going to go around the entire heart with the same stitch. So I'm going to speed this up a lot so you don't have to sit through all of that. It does take a little bit of time, but you know what? Really not that bad, especially because the holes are already cut for you. I think that's always the hardest part for me on a layout, is punching a bunch of holes. So this really went rather quickly. So when I'm all done at the end of the heart, I'm going to use my tail to create a little knot. I'm just going to tie it once and then tie it again and not pull too hard so that I don't cinch the felt. And when you tie it tight enough on that second one there, it will lay pretty flat against your felt and you won't see much bulk behind it. Then I'm going to take a sharp pair of scissors. I love these little Fiskars ones for this because the blades seem to be extra sharp. And that's the first look that you can get from these memory box stitching dies. So I did that on both of these hearts here, but on this next heart I wanted to show you the other look that you can get very simply just by changing the stitch up a little bit. You start out exactly the same way, coming up from the back, leaving a tail, and then going forward for the first stitch. But when you come up in the next hole, you're going to, instead of going backwards towards your stitch, you're going to keep going forwards. So this is, I think, what they call just a straight stitch. And this creates that gap in between the stitches, which I think is really, really cute. And depending on the look that you're going for, can be absolutely perfect. The nice thing about this stitch is it takes pretty much half the time because you're not doing all of the stitches. So if you're in a hurry, this might be the stitch for you to create a little handmade embellishment for your layouts or cards. So I'm going to speed this up again so that you don't have to watch this whole thing being stitched, but you can see that it kind of gives that, sometimes on Valentine's hearts, they have that every other stitch look. So now again, I'm going to finish it in exactly the same way as we did the first heart. I'm going to use the tail to tie a knot, and I'm going to just show you that if I pull too tight, the felt does cinch, and I don't want that. I want this laying completely flat on my card. So then I'm going to just loosely tie the first one, and then the second one is where you can really tighten up and make sure the knot stays in place. And then when you cut the tails very close to the knot, it will all lay very flat on your project and it will look great. So there you go. That's two different stitches, two different ways that you can use these memory box dies to create two different looks on your stitched felt. So now we're going to start putting the card together a little bit. I have some Zots, I have a couple of stitched hearts, I have some Thermoweb Memory Runner XL, I have an A2 card base and a panel, some iCraft mixed media adhesive, some stamps and dies from Avery Elle, and I've already cut the Hugs die from Avery Elle out of black fun foam. So I'm going to start laying out my card. First, I'm going to adhere the panel down to the card base. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 stitched rectangle that was cut with a Lawn Fawn die. And then I'm going to lay down my hearts and figure out exactly where I want them and then where I want my stamping and my sentiment, my foam sentiment. So I have the little typed sentiment from the stamps that's sending love and then I have the hugs in the foam below. So I'm going to use my Misty. I'm going to have everything on the card panel while I'm figuring out exactly how I want the stamps, just so that I make sure I leave enough room but not too much room and everything looks centered and in the right place. So now that I kind of have my card laid out, I'm going to bring in my T-ruler and line up the sentiment for stamping. When I close the door on the T-ruler, I can still pick up my stamps. Then I lay down my magnet, ink up the stamps, close the door, and I've stamped my sentiment. So I also cut a couple of little hearts from felt. That little heart is included in the memory box dies. So I'm going to use some mixed media adhesive from Thermoweb to adhere those tiny little felt hearts. And now I'm using the same liquid adhesive to adhere the tiny little crystal droplets from Pretty Pink Posh, which I love these. They're just beautiful dimension and shine, and they just look so unique. So I've laid everything out, and then I decide not enough. I want to add some star sequins, and I also want to add some Wink of Stella shimmer to the Hugs die. So I'm just brushing on some of the glitter shimmer from the Wink of Stella right on top of that cut fun foam. And it's hard to see in camera, but when I tilt it there, you can kind of see it does add a little sparkle and shine. And you'll see in the end photograph, I've added even more droplets, more sequins. I just didn't know when to stop, but I love the way this card came out, and I love the way that felt looks on cards. So like I said, if you're interested in seeing more about that, please check out my class at Big Picture Classes called the Wow Factor. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please click the subscribe button down below. I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. Have a great day.